Okay, so the impact of the Christian worldview in redeeming the culture of the Roman world. As Christianity spread and became the preeminent religion of the Roman Empire, many cultural shifts and engagements began to take place. The Christian ethic began to reshape and change social mores, social expectations, the way people interacted with each other. This wasn't just a religious growth movement, it was more like a spiritual awakening in which people were truly spiritually transformed and began to live differently. Christ's Sermon on the Mount ethos rebuked the pursuit of power and money and the love of ambitions that were so much part of pagan culture. Some Christian thinkers tried to salvage the best of classical culture. Now, this don't throw the baby out with the bathwater approach kind of resulted in much of the classical wisdom and culture being preserved and treasured. So when we read Plato and Homer and Aristotle and Epictetus and all of these ancient philosophers and thinkers, those works were preserved by Christians later on. Had they not been, we wouldn't have them today. So there were many Christian thinkers who were trying to salvage parts of classical culture, the better parts, if you will. Okay? Intellectually, the Platonic, Aristotelian, and Stoic teachings found some role in the Christian worldview. Perhaps Paul had launched this strategy himself, for example, when he engages with philosophers on Mars Hill in Acts 17, and he speaks directly to them using their own thoughts from their own thought systems to engage them. But the core teachings of Christ, his ethic, and its equalizing spirituality began a transformation of every part of the culture. And perhaps the best survey of this whole dynamic and everything that's been going on is an epic work called Augustine's City of God. If you ever get a chance to look at Augustine's work, The City of God, and read some of it, it's truly an epic work, his magnum opus. In there, Augustine is trying to explain why Rome fell in 410 to the Visigoths and why it was sacked. And in there, he's explaining that it wasn't the weaknesses of Christian teachings. In other words, it wasn't the weakness of Christian morality that led to the fall of Rome. What led to the sack of Rome was its internal weaknesses. They had been there long before. And so it's an apologetic work to explain why Christianity did not lead to this epic fall. Now, 66 years later, the Western Roman Empire would fall, and fall completely, and be dissolved. And it is into that work that our next lecture will look, or into that period where our next lecture will look.